Let's go.
Here we are. Here we are.
Here we are.
I think it's an indication of how the episode's going with which one of us speaks first.
This is a signal.
We're going to go through like a correlation causation on our listenership of who speaks. That's such a great data point. What a great data point.
I do not want to speak because I lost my microphone. I don't lose it. I know where it is, but I don't have it. So
This is going to be like the top line hotline where Austin ran with it because you're like, all right, see you later, Sam.
Good job.
Yeah, that was a stylish transition. Like we were pros right there.
It was just the epitome of stylish.
Yeah, I was proud.
Stylish.
Yeah. You couldn't tell. It was great.
This is Top Line.
Today's episode is brought to you by 6 Sense. 6 Sense Revenue AI eliminates guesswork and arms your revenue team with the data and visibility it needs to create and convert high-quality pipeline into revenue. Traditional revenue technologies can't detect anonymous B2B buying activity. This creates a dark funnel that leads to mistimed engagement or missing out on opportunities altogether. 6 Sense Revenue AI eliminates hidden buyer behavior in the dark funnel while enhancing the technologies you already use. You'll capture every revenue moment and deliver more predictable revenue. Find out more at 6sense.com.
Austin, here we are, Top Line, episode 35.
35.
With your co-host, Sam Jacobs, CEO of Pavilion, Austin Zaman, CEO of Sales Talent Agency, AJ Bruno, CEO, founder, QuotaPath. And we have an amazing docket today. Because why? The docket isn't in a Google Drive today. You texted it to us, Austin.
Because it's so simple, but it's beautiful. But before we jump into our docket, we have news. We have breaking news, so we have to chat about it. It's in our ecosystem. One of the, I think, most respected VC firms, at least in the PLG space, has shut down. OpenView just announced yesterday that they are shutting down. They're laying off most of their staff. This is a firm that raised $2.4 billion through their various funds. They had invested in companies like Databricks and Calendly. Yeah, they coined the term PLG. And they'd actually raised a couple of $100 million in March. So this really took everyone by surprise. What's the reaction to this, AJ? What are you feeling when you saw this?
80 people lost their jobs. So first and foremost, heart goes out to them because those are very talented people. Now there's a phenomenal, like the people that we know, Kyle Poyer. Kyle will do exceptionally well. That guy he has more newsletter followers than we probably have listeners. So there's that.
You should hire him.
Yeah, we should. Can we bring him as a co-host of Top Line?
That would be great. As a co-host, you're saying
as a guest.
No, you should hire him for Pavilion. Like you.
Oh. I would love, and also Blake Bartlett, right?
Blake, partner, Mackie. Here's my take. And in 2012, my experience with this was a fund called Austin Ventures. And Austin Ventures was a 300-pound gorilla in the Austin ecosystem. They funded all of the great tech companies. Trilogy was one of their early claims to fame.
Trilogy Education, Dan Summers' company?
No, Trilogy was PC Order. This is a throwback, 1998 here. Long decade. But there's a whole like case study history written about this. The founder CEO, Joe Lamont, is like a storied person in Austin. He lives at the top of the Rice building that looks like an owl. I don't need to go into all of those details. Here's the details. The Austin Ventures had 30 partners, call it. And when I landed in Austin, it was the fund that you had to go through. And so Trend Kite were like, Matt, my co-founder, and I are like, we got to get funding from Austin Ventures. And we got connected to this partner, Mike Dodd. Mike was one of the partners. And we did like multiple partner rounds. And we're so excited and everyone's so jazzed. And then they ghosted us. We straight up got ghosted by Austin Ventures.
Wow.
And I didn't know this, but they, well before meeting us, were a zombie fund. And have you guys, either of you heard of the term zombie fund?
Explain it for the listeners.
Zombie fund is you have partners. You're operating like a day-to-day fund, but you have no funds to distribute. You can't make any new investments. And so you have management fees and you have partners sitting on boards, and you're taking meetings just to take meetings. And we
For
didn't
like
know
the
this.
impression that you are still in the game, like
The
it's an
impression
impression.
that you're still a fund and that you still exist. And to the outside world looking in, all the marketing looks like you're a real fund. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened to OpenView, but here's what I am saying. This always tends to happen with the same thing, partner infighting.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to Austin Ventures. And now there's like 10 smaller seed funds that exist in Austin from all the Austin Ventures. Like Bill Wood founded Silverton. Bill Wood was the original founder of Austin Ventures in Silverton. And now Mike Dodd's at Silverton. So you have partners there. You have Next Coast Ventures. Tom Ball was the partner at Austin Ventures. You have Live Oak. Those two partners were Austin Ventures partners as well. And so it's a really fascinating thing to see what happens. I don't think this is a symptom of something bigger. My guess is, and I have connections to OpenView. I will call this. I went to an OpenView executive offsite in 2019. It was the coolest thing. I got to race Lamborghinis with Scott Dorsey, which was really, really cool. But like, it felt like I was in Bizarro World.
You
So
just
that's how
said something very interesting. So you're saying this is not the first of many VC firms falling down because there's some systemic issue in the world of VC. I saw a post from the COO of Catalyst Software saying that this is just part of the process where now one VC firm has fallen, and kind of the indication where first companies fell, now VC firms will fall, etc. You don't think this is that. You think it's more like an Austin Ventures type of thing where
I think you're right. I think it's fair to see and keep an open mind. I'm not an investor. So like I mean I'm an investor as an angel, but I'm not at a fund. I can't tell you what all of those fund dynamics. I can tell you what Insight, huge fund, 90 billion. I think they're a fund that is uh doing things differently, but I also just would say there's a diversification across their portfolio where honestly, OpenView was a smaller fund. I know there's probably 4.5 billion under management, but even 4 or 5 years ago, it was a $400 million fund. It was a really small fund at that time. And Scott Maxwell came from Insight Partners.
yeah, he did. He was a
So
senior managing partner there.
yeah, there's a lot of story there as well. But I would say the more boutique funds, it's kind of like the banks, right?
Yeah.
It probably has a similar feeling to that. I couldn't speak to the actual fund dynamics. Sam, any of this like resonating or agree with any of this? Feel on the seat now?
I do not agree that it's not part of a broader trend. I think it is part of a broader trend. I think, why do people fight? I think you're probably right that it's partner infighting. I'm sure you're right about that. Why were they fighting?
And I truly have no idea at OpenView.
We're just hypothesizing here.
You're probably correct, but why were they fighting? It's the same reason like divorces go up in economic downturns.
Stress.
Stress, because their companies weren't performing well. I bet, despite what Jason Lemkin said on our podcast, I bet a bunch of checks that they wrote in 2021 are deeply underwater. Yeah. And as all of us know, especially you, AJ, I think there's a lot of, because I was just thinking about this because I had dinner last night with Scott Schleifer's sister, and we were talking about Tiger Global. She wasn't mentioning anything private or confidential, but that's another situation, right, where the founder of the fund is being put on some kind of like advisory capacity and removed from direct investing. All of these things are happening now. Why are they happening now? They're happening now because a bunch of people wrote bad checks. Not bad checks, but they just overpaid for a bunch of assets. And there's an entire asset class, the venture capital asset class, which is sitting on top of a bunch of money losing investments. And I think that's gonna ripple in a bunch of different ways. I don't think OpenView is necessarily. I don't think there's like some collapse that's happening, but on the other hand, we all on our text thread all know of all kinds of different conversations with investors where the investors are not happy, where they're trying to figure out how to get out. There's another example. So I went for a run. This was this fall in Seattle, and I went with I won't say the guy's name, but he was the CRO of a company that was actually doing well. And there was, again, weird board dynamics. And one of the investors had invested from a fund and then left that fund. And so, they were sort of like, the fund had a board seat that was no longer occupied. And the fund and the investors forced the company to shut down, again, because they felt like they were so far out of the money on their investment that they wanted to redeploy their capital in a different way, or just write down the loss for whatever reason.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think I don't know the specifics either. I think it's a big loss for the industry because of all the thought leadership. I mean, we've had Kyle Poyar spoke at our CRO summit in London this summer. Blake Bartlett's done a ton of PLG sessions for particularly for CEOs, and OpenView was one of the people that really popularized. Like, they helped, along with Matrix Partners and Skok, who we've talked about, and probably Insight as well. But they've helped establish thought leadership, and maybe Bessemer is another good example. They've helped establish thought leadership around how we should all be talking about SaaS and how we should be thinking about SaaS. So I just think it sucks because I thought they were a very well-regarded, highly respected firm, and they made some great investments. And all of the people that I know that work there were incredible, including Kyle Lacey, who spent some time there before going to lesson.
I mean, it introduced me to my favorite investor of all time, Liz Christo.
There you go.
Liz was a partner at OpenView, now at Stage 2 on the board of QuotaPath. So I am fortunate for that. But at the same time, it's just, huge bummer. But Sam, those people will be fine. Like, those are all
I think they'll be fine. I do think that, as we all know, right? Like, there are too many companies, there's too much capital, there's too many salespeople. Like, there was too much. And no matter what, I am a macroeconomic expert, Jason Lumpkin. So I don't care what you say. And high interest rates have contracted the size of, venture and growth investing definitionally. And so this is part of, again, the specifics are not part of the shakeout, but why were they fighting in the first place? What caused the tension? Nobody's fighting whenever your investment's going up and to the right and you're IPOing 5 different companies. Then everybody's high-fiving and sweeping everything under the rug. It's when times get tough that people start, counting pennies and saying, you didn't do that deal, I did that deal, and et cetera, et cetera.
I think if we do equate it to the SVB situation, you're probably right. We're going to hear of a few more, but what I mean by that is like a couple of data points where there's some more of the boutique ones. And there's LP asking for returns and downward pressure there. And we shall see.
There was a huge trend of solo VCs that picked up when the market was frothy, right? Like these 1-2 person shops that raised, a couple of 100 million, 100 million, and were deploying it. I think those will find it'll be very difficult for them to be able to raise new funds. And so those will you'll see shutdowns in some cases, and you'll see others just operate like those zombie funds that you spoke about, AJ. I think that's where a lot of the cleanout's going to happen. And you'll find firms and you'll also then see what it takes. When you think about somebody like Benchmark, I have so much respect for them because look at how they have sustained themselves through so many generations. A generational shift at a VC firm is so difficult. So many companies struggle with it. Benchmark has done it so stylishly over year after year. They've been so disciplined about that $400 million fund where everybody was raising $2, $5, $7 billion funds. These guys were like, no, it has to be 400 million. They don't have a CEO. They have a committee. And for all the cons of it, they prefer the pros that come with that type of model. And they've just stayed disciplined, irrespective of interest rates and market dynamics. And I think there's a lot to learn from companies like that.
Okay. Same thing with Union Square Ventures. Exactly the same thing, where they're always constraining the fund size. Fred Wilson's like, this is how I know how to work. These are the checks I know how to write. This is what we're going to do. And it's really cool.
It's a serious question here. I maybe you two know, and I didn't really think about this. Let's think about the portcos of OpenView. If you have a previous partner that was OpenView on the board, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Like, what are the conversations that are happening now? And like, how?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that hey, we have to get out and return capital now? And like, you're calling alone, or is that like we're just going to sit on the board,
No.
management fee kind of thing?
I don't think you can pull capital out like that. Life's not that easy. Like you put it in, it stays in now. Like, that's the way it
I
goes.
mean, I assume I was like, I need to look at my own charter here.
Unless
I
there
think it's
is,
good for the CEOs,
yeah.
probably, right? That's like
Right.
a little bit more leverage, and maybe they can. But I don't know how, who knows how the board charters work.
Yeah.
So let's now jump into our original docket, the fun stuff. So, Sam, you had a really good idea, which is let's make this episode a little bit more operational as we come towards the end of the year. So, we're going to talk about a couple of different things, and we're going to start with a couple of tactics, specific tactics that each of us have implemented as CEOs in our organizations to good effect. I like that term, good effect. Sam, you used it. I've stolen it. So, Sam, let's start with you. What is a tactic that you have come up with and implemented this year that has worked well for Pavilion and you're proud of?
2 tactics, because in your docket you said 1 to 3. So I've got 2.
Cool.
If that's okay. All right. So the first, I guess the headline for me is you all hear me talk about this all the time, P&L fluency. And so it's I don't know if it's a discipline, it's a tactic, but it's something that I've been doing more this year than any year previously, which is really diving deep on the P&L and then modeling cash flows much more frequently to really understand the inflows and outflows of the business. So through the first half of the year, we were doing a 13-week weekly cash flow forecast, where we were, again, just trying to make sure we understood how does the business work, how do the inflows work, how do the outflows work, and checking that every single week. Now we've moved to monthly. But I found it to be just incredibly, I mean, obviously everybody should have a cash flow forecast, but I don't know if everybody's updating the model every single month or every single week. And I would really encourage you, if you're CEO or founder, if you're not doing that, it's what I used to do is I used to just log in and check the bank accounts, and I would have a sort of a rhythmic sense of how inflows and outflows worked.
Yeah.
But looking at the P&L almost every day, looking at the model every single day, and then sharing that model, I've also opened up visibility on our balance sheet to a few more people than I previously had shared it with. And so me, Carly Palace, Chief of Staff, and Kwabena Sayadu, our Head of Finance, we look at the model very, very, very often, multiple times a week. And we're just constant. And what it helps us do is understand the business better, understand how things flow in, how things flow out. Another thing that we did, again, related to P&L fluency, is and this was at the request of Steve White-Trekkie, our independent board member, we recut. So we have a bunch of different revenue lines. And one of the things that Steve was saying to me all year was, you don't understand your own business. And it was the greatest moment of the year recently when he said, I think you finally are beginning to understand your own business.
Wow.
Because this man does not give compliments. And so we recut the P&L by product line. That's another thing that we did. And again, the theme is P&L fluency. So what does that mean? That means that we sell sponsorships, we sell tickets to events, we sell memberships, and we also sell corporate memberships. And we recut the P&L to allocate costs based on each of those line items, as opposed to how we previously looked at it, which is blending the entire P&L together. So there's a bunch of top line items like all the revenue stuff, and then all of the costs were, in one big bucket, and then you would have EBITDA at the bottom. And instead, we looked at it. What is our events business? Is our events business profitable on a standalone basis with all headcount fully allocated? Is our membership business, stripping out events, stripping out learning programs, is it standalone profitable? How does our acquisition engine work? Very specifically. So again, all of this is under the header of P&L fluency, but the specific tactics I would recommend would be a 13-week weekly cash flow forecast, at a minimum a monthly cash flow forecast that you look at with your head of finance very, very regularly, and then recutting your P&L by product line to understand how you're allocating costs if you have revenue coming in from different places.
Sam, that's fascinating. What is something that you have done based on you now reviewing this P&L more often and in a better way than you were before? Has there been something operational, an insight that you gained that you wouldn't have gained if you were just instinctively looking at it?
Yes. The answer is yes. And what is that answer? Again, you might have seen me writing on LinkedIn, because all of you are following me on LinkedIn that are listening. Thank you so much. Please click the bell on my profile and be notified every time I write a new post. But here's what I did differently. I used to think in primary colors, and what this does is helps you think in palettes. What do I mean by that? We have a corporate business. We sell corporate memberships. It's called Pavilion for Teams. And for a long time, we hadn't positioned it the right way. So it wasn't easily integrated into the rest of our business. And we saw some very significant churn issues with our corporate business this year. And a blunt instrument would be get rid of the corporate business. And when we recut the P&L and we looked at it, we said it's actually very profitable, even with very high churn, because we don't spend a lot of resources to acquire the customers, and we don't spend a lot of resources, and we probably should spend a little bit more, and we can make even more money. But what it helped do is confirm that, well, it really changed my thinking, because I was like, let's shut it down, maybe, and instead we're like, no, it's actually quite profitable, and there's probably things we can do to improve it and to buttress it, but we don't need to shut it down. We don't need to cut off our, cut off our nose to spite our face, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a specific example. Another specific example is we reallocated specific event line items because we saw we were close to break even, but it helped inform the purpose and the structure of our event business. And so we said, going into 2024, events on a standalone basis, meaning when we allocate our internal events team and the event planning agencies that we use, they must be break even or profitable. And we didn't have a point of view on whether that was the case before. And in fact, some people had said, oh, we are profitable, but they of course weren't allocating the salaries of our events team, so that means it's a very important thing to allocate.
It's a big cost.
And or commissions that we pay to our sponsorship salesperson that typically pays for the event. So that's another example of just helping right size the investment. Yeah. One of the people might have heard me talking about right sizing investments regularly, and that's what I mean. It's not. There's so many decisions sometimes when you're CEO or founder where you say, should I or shouldn't I? And it's not quite the right question. It's to what extent. And recutting the P&L by product line helps you figure out, okay, maybe we want to be in the events business. We just can't lose $1 million a year at it.
Yeah, that's a great start. I love this one. That was really good. You have good words, Sam. I don't know, you say certain things, and it's like those 2-3 words together are just very stylish. AJ, what's yours?
Now we'll go to AJ, and he's going to be all over the fucking map with that. Boss is like, yeah, Sam, you're just so eloquent.
No pressure, AJ.
Dazzling with your words, even without a microphone.
You didn't hear what he said offline. He said, you're so just physically attractive. He wants to reach through the screen.
It's so handsome.
Like to lick my cheek.
Oh my God.
Okay, outside of the licking your cheek part, you nailed it.
Okay, AJ, what's yours?
I'm gonna go. I think the fluency in cash flow is a fantastic one. It's very tactical. My tactical is listening more and being calmer about my decision making. Not getting as excited or as I still am getting passionate, but I had a 360 last year where one of the things that came out of it is just my overused passion comes off in a thrashy way. It comes off in this kind of quick cycle, whether it's thrash on Slack or just in general. So my communication style has changed tremendously this year, where I've taken a step back from anything that's gone. I no longer do rapid Slacks or just have this. Now, I still sometimes I fall back on those. I'm not picture perfect. I'm a perfect human here. I'm still working on it, but it's recognizing those things and taking a pause. And that's something that I have learned a lot this year, given how much thrash there's been around me. To say if I'm meeting the environment, then I'm not helping anything. I'm not giving
a clear voice for my ball then.
What?
You're like a ping pong ball based on
exactly. And so my team is going to feel that there's no security in the environment, and there's no security at work because the leader is acting and mimicking them. So I've kind of had to push and go against the grain in that way. And that's been a really tremendous learning experience for me, and something that I'm going to take on as a leader in the future.
So that's really interesting. I think all of us, as we evolve as leaders of any sort, but especially in this role, one of the things you get a better grasp on is your communication style, framework, process, etc. We have this built-in way of doing things, and then we have to design this ideal method. And I think that's a really interesting transition point for leaders when they realize, oh, now I need to be intentional about this. It's tricky because the instinct still always kicks in. How have you operationalized this for yourself? Do you have a way of making sure that old AJ doesn't just come up every time something happens? How are you operationalizing this?
There's two real key ways. I actually write the word pause when something is triggering. Now, the big issue that I have when I'm stressed, oh, look at this. When I'm stressed, I just go get a dog and I pet the dog.
That's Sam's method. Sam just hugs his dog and he's good.
His dog. He was like, you know what? I need something to lick my cheek right now.
I need the feeling of a tongue on my cheek. It's usually Austin's tongue, but in this case. Sorry to interrupt.
This is an X-rated episode, guys. It's what happens at the end of the year. It is what it is.
Talking about?
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I know. So I write the word pause down, but the other way is actually ChatGPT has been super, super helpful in this.
Oh, that's so cool.
Where it's given me that sounding board of how can this be received and what does this look like. So taking something that's a Slack that I'm like, okay, how, if I'm on the other end of this ChatGPT, how does this sound? What are like the perceptions of this type of message that's going across in Slack?
Dude, that is a tactic. That's awesome.
That's fucking great.
That is great. That. How you just asked ChatGPT, what would you think if I said
if you were an executive on my team and you were receiving this message?
What's the funniest response you've gotten? Like, are they like, I would think you're a fucking lunatic if you said it this way?
Well, you can turn the temperature up or down on ChatGPT. I don't know. Do you guys know this?
Yeah.
You just turn the temperature like, hey, you're a wild man. You can receive this.
You crazy AI.
Oh. So,
Austin, what about you, bro?
That's really interesting. I love these. Okay, so this one's, we did something difficult, but in hindsight, right. So earlier this year, we put a freeze on all costs, which meant no new purchases, no events, no salary increases, and no promotions. This is obviously controversial, especially the salaries and promotions part. And the main one being that your best employees have options in any given market. It might be less options than before, but they have options. So when you do something like this, you take on turnover risk. We felt that basing our move off of that would be operating from a place of fear, and our responsibility as executives is to effectively allocate resources against your top priorities. Resources are scarce by nature, and our top priority in this moment was risk minimization. We help technology companies build go-to-market teams in a technology recession, and so the move to make is to minimize risk. And one of the ways to minimize risk is to just freeze your fixed costs, is to not increase them, right? And so we felt that it was the right move to make, but it would be only possible if you were able to get people to buy into this idea that this is the right move for us to do as a collective. And we felt it was a problem worth trying to solve. We believed that we had enough goodwill built up over the last couple of years where we could do this and people would hear us out. And so we did it. We also felt, and this was the big one, we felt that it would make it very clear to the organization that we are at war. And this is wartime. Because this is the most severe wartime tactic that you can implement, right? So it's not just saying, oh, this is a tough economy, we got to give it our best. It's like, hey, guys, we're fucking war. So wartime tactics are on. Now let's go as a collective, fight against this. Here are the things we need to do. And we're all going to work as a unit to make it so that we can turn these things back on. And we felt that in hindsight now, we got the buy-in. People were okay with it. And there's always this understanding if rules are such where you can't let perfect be the enemy of good, meaning that there might be this 1% instance where somebody comes up and says, I get it, but I think you should reconsider it in my instance for this. And you're always open to having those conversations. But overall, everybody was appreciative of, I think, the communication, that we were not trying to sugarcoat the moment in time that we were in, that we were being transparent, that this is a tricky moment. We've got to fight our way through it, and we've got to fight like a collective. And now, if we look back, we haven't lost $1 through this entire downturn. At our worst, we had 150 projects that we were working on, which is a lot. So we're not at capacity, but we're not far off it. And I spoke about last week in the shout out that we're seeing signals right now that show us that we're coming into a warm market in Q1. And that's because of all the work that we've done. And I think part of it's not just the strategies we have implemented, but it was that energy with which we were fighting this fight. And I think this move helped us with that. So that was mine.
Are you a CEO or founder looking to get ahead in 2024? Then join me, Sam Jacobs, and over 100 high-growth CEOs and founders for Pavilion's 2024 CEO Summit. We're gathering at the elite Phoenician Resort in Scottsdale, Arizona, to share revolutionary insights and strategies on how to navigate the current economic climate with confidence and certainty. At Pavilion CEO Summit 2024, expect expert-led education sessions, hands-on workshops, and exclusive networking opportunities with fellow CEOs and founders from around the world, including the team from Topline, me, Asad, and AJ. Buy your ticket at joinpavilion.com/CEO Summit and use the code TOPLINE for 20% off. That's joinpavilion.com/CEO Summit and use the code TOPLINE for 20% off. I hope to see you there.
That's awesome.
So good.
Okay. So, question. You want to do one more of these or you want to move to...
I think we're going to run out of time, so I think we need to move to the next.
We do 1-1-1 and then we'll come back to this some other time.
1-1-1.
Okay.
So I thought we were answering. Mine was, I just answered all of them with my one answer. It was so fucking good.
No, this is also going to
He literally turns his mic off, walks away.
He doesn't give a shit about what you're saying, Asad. He just came back from the bathroom the whole time.
No. I just went to my refrigerator that exists in my office and got my Topo Chico lime and mints. That's what I was.
Okay, so next one. I think something really interesting about great leaders is that they have a lot of conviction around certain things, but they also hold opinions loosely. So when good information, good reason presents itself, they're able to change their mind about important things. So, Sam, what is something important that you have changed your mind about in the last year?
Well, I would... so many things, but here's the most important one. It's hard to explain why I believe this. I guess I believe this very strongly because I felt like, partially because we raised money, I think, if I'm being honest, and it informed some of my perspective, but also because I guess I'd met with the founders of Chief and they built their own platform. And so through this year, through 2 months ago or a month and a half ago, I believe very strongly that we needed to build our own platform, our own software platform. And we had a product and engineering organization. And that was I was wrong. And I have completely changed my mind about that. And it's not because, it's not even because of like the specific people that we were working with. It's because we're not a software company. And there's this perspective that some people have that you need software to justify a valuation. And I think that is the stupid tail wagging the dog. It's not true. The purpose of software, and one of my mentors said this years ago. He said, you should only build software if it helps you get to 1 million members. But your job is to get to 1 million members the cheapest possible way that you can and still make them happy. It is not necessarily to do any specific thing on the path to building 1 million members. And so that was correct, and I was wrong. And the other thing this particular mentor said, he said, the worst thing I ever did was try to build my own software. I regret that. I should have used every single possible thing that was off the shelf instead of trying to build my own stuff. And the metaphor that I have is, I don't know if anybody ever, rents a car, but I rented a car. I rented an old Ford Mustang this summer when I drove down from Norfolk to the Outer Banks in North Carolina to visit my family. And I don't know if anybody else gets frustrated, but I get really frustrated when a car doesn't have Apple CarPlay. And when I can't use because my eyes suck. So I need like a big screen to see Waze or to see Google Maps. And I'm sitting there swearing, saying, Ford, you're not going to build a better software interface than Apple. Just use their SDK. Just incorporate their SDK. And I realized I was doing exactly the same thing.
That's so interesting.
It turns out that community management is a category of software. It's a category of software. And it's not that the people building our software weren't good at it. They were great. But why use 3 engineers when Hivebright or Mighty Networks or Circle has 50 engineers or 100 engineers? Why don't I just rely on their engineers? And also, there's something to be said for building your own thing, but also their roadmap is the aggregation of all of the different customers they have, all of the different communities. And I bet some of those communities have better ideas than me. So why don't I benefit from the roadmap of somebody that's listening to hundreds of people, rather than assuming that I'm such a special snowflake that I'm going to build something that is so unique and proprietary and it's going to be so different that I just absolutely have to. And so that was the thing I changed my mind about. If you're a software business, AJ runs a software business. He needs to build software, but that probably means he shouldn't start a community or he shouldn't start a conference business. I've come to terms with the fact, and if there's possible investors out there that are now like this valuation, fair enough. But Pavilion is not a software company. We are a heavily operations led company, but we're not a software business, and we're not going to build. If we build our own software, it'll probably be elegant integrations, stylish, as Asad would say, that integrate third-party services. But I no longer believe that we need our own software.
I just sent a note out that I'm going to shut down my Slack for all the top line listeners. I'm building a community, but Sam just told me I shouldn't do that. So if you were invited to the top line Slack community, I'm so sorry out there.
It's such an interesting one, right? Like, what has your experience been now that you've seen some of these platforms out there? Like, have you found, you mentioned something where their roadmap is the aggregation of all the different customers that they have, and we might learn something by understanding where they're going based on all of this feedback that they're getting from the market. Have you uncovered something in these conversations already?
Yeah. We're going to have 20 times the functionality by the end of January that, we were talking about. And again, I'm not diminishing our team. This is not about, this is about,
great people.
I did not have the balance sheet or the expertise to build a high performing software organization. And that is not core. That's not what our members were asking for. But nevertheless, we're going to have a mobile app by February.
What?
A white label mobile app and that's out of the box with all of the major players in the space right now.
That's
like a white label mobile app. And we were years from being able to even think about that with building our own stuff. They have built-in gamification, so there's going to be leaderboards and all kinds of different engagement activity. All of it elegantly and out of the box. The APIs all sync with Salesforce, so we're going to have much deeper member engagement data. They have specialized groups, right? So, and we can make all of the chapter heads and all of our community leaders. Maybe Asad, if you run the CEO group of Toronto, you'll have admin access to this platform, and you can send messages to only the CEO people of Toronto. You can plan your own events only for the CEO people of Toronto. So it's kind of like this combo of like LinkedIn groups plus Slack channels. But all of this functionality is going to be a game changer for the membership. It's just going to be everything that they've been asking for and more, all in one place. And it's also going to enable new monetization schemes. It comes with a job board out of the box. And all of a sudden, like if somebody says, I want to start a healthcare pavilion for healthcare, we can just say, which is Jesse Gomez wants to do that. And I can say, great, Jesse, you're an admin now. We've created a healthcare Slack channel, and we've created a healthcare group within the platform. Go forth and start signing people up. And so the ability to create micro communities is now much, much more powerful.
That's very cool. The mobile app would be such an unlock, right? Like you standing in line, you jump in quickly, you see what's happening. Like it made so much sense for a community to have a mobile app. Very happy for you. That's very cool. AJ, what have you changed your mind about in the last 4 months?
The thing, like many of us, I think that the three of us would agree that this year as executives is a very different year. But even though I started my career in 2007, I really didn't get into software entrepreneurship until 2012. And so I saw the world through the lens, and we've talked a little bit about the David Scott, the recurring business model. Is it broken? We've gone back and forth on that. And so coming into this year, we have this like point of view of like, oh, we're going to double this year, no problem. We're going to triple this year. Like, even though everyone's telling you that that's not the case, that's what you know because that's what you've done. You think you're a special snowflake because of how your performance and how you've operated. And this year has definitely changed my mind on that. That's not always going to be the case, no matter who you are or what you are. And while missing plan sucks, it is not a fun feeling. It's not at all. For anyone out there, I would guess that there's been some level of misses. There are certainly industries that are doing better than others, but
and you shared recently that in the last 10 years, you always either doubled or tripled revenue. This was the first time when you hadn't done that, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And so while that's a challenge, it's your thought partners and your executives in the business that are pushing and still very much engaged that you should rely on and treat very well. And I don't say this is a changing the mind per se, but I think it's not taking those things for granted. And I think we as leaders in our own businesses, going along with the first comment that I made and just what I've learned as CEO in terms of listening more and communication style, I think this goes a lot right along with it, right?
Mm,
Um, I would say that that's like the one thing that I have. Now that said, I'm going to jump and give it the second point because
do
you said 2 to 3 and fuck it, I'm doing it. I think 2024 is going to be a great year, and I didn't think this until this week.
Welcome to the optimistic side.
I know, and I know there's a very up and down point of view, but here's why. And this is in my own data. And I just did so Liz Christo and I did a session at Inbounds around the 9 levers of growth. And we talked about those, and we were talking about the efficiency to growth. And we just did that same presentation to our team yesterday. And we actually had to change the presentation because the boards that I am seeing are focusing on growth. You are tying more to growth next year. They're flipping back. Plans are coming back too conservative.
Amazon and Microsoft, which I think are really interesting. If no one looks at any public earnings, you should look at Amazon and Microsoft because the utilization of cloud is an indicator of what's about to play out in the following quarters, right? It's the best leading indicator. And so they shared, like we have seen clear signals that we're past the optimization phase. Like all the optimization that
The
needs to be done
efficiency.
is
Yeah.
done, like this drive for efficiency. We're now in the traditional, like, let's build, let's
Yeah.
move
And the
forward
reason you
phase.
see that, as you said, we talked about Salesforce services having their best quarter ever. As headcount was cut, you had to switch to services. That will reverse back. So the pendulum is
Mm.
about to swing back, and I think it shows in these financial plans. And the financial plans are leading indicators to budget opening up for headcounts and for recruiting,
What's
for
up?
go-to-market teams and hiring on go-to-market teams. Now, it's not going to happen like it did in 2020, 2021. It's definitely going to be on you'll see it slowly trickle, and
When
then
though? Like, so I think the big question is, I feel like because of where inflation and interest rates are right now, it's quite logical to imagine that the second half of the year is going to feel much better. I'm very confused about what the first half would feel like. Do you feel like 2024 as a whole is going to be like this upward momentum, or do you feel like the first quarter or two are going to be grindy the way Q3, Q4 are
I think
grindy,
like
and then
everything, it's a lumpiness feeling. There's going to be start stops along
yeah,
the way, and you're right. The interest rates are still going to dictate how we most likely feel. I think that the budgetary pieces for spend on tooling opens up first. So you have services going to tools, tools going to headcount. You
yeah.
still look at automation as an efficiency around automation. That's something that every company will push hard, but that is a spend on tooling itself. So
Interesting.
my take.
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna run
Awesome.
quick.
Yours.
Yeah. Okay. So something I've changed my mind about in the last 24 hours is how tiring video calls can be. So when we all went remote in 2020, there were a lot of articles around the idea of Zoom fatigue. Essentially, people were doing a lot of video calls for the first time, and they were feeling very tired, more so at 5 p.m. than they would be if they were having those meetings in person. And so then we saw this data that showed that the cognitive load of a video call is more so than any other form of interaction. And so at the end of the day, if you've had a lot of back-to-back video calls, you're going to feel exhausted. And it was one of the compromises companies even now knowingly make when they choose to get the benefits of being remote. Turns out it's way more complicated than that. So I was reading a study last night that was conducted in Finland where they looked at employee knowledge workers at 2 multinational companies took part in this study to identify the relationship between virtual meetings and fatigue. And they felt that the data that was originally shared with the market was flawed because it didn't differentiate between the 2 fundamental types of fatigue: active fatigue, passive fatigue. Active fatigue is from overstimulation, passive fatigue is from being bored as fuck. And so they felt that you had to differentiate between these two types to actually see which one was happening, why, and what to do about it. Turns out that virtual meetings were linked with higher levels of passive fatigue than active fatigue. It wasn't overstimulation. People were bored. And so they also found out that how engaged an employee is impacts which of the two types of fatigue they get. So we shared in a couple of episodes before that 68% of US workers are disengaged at work, right? This was Gallup data. So it made sense that the majority of people get passive fatigue because the majority of people are disengaged at work. And passive fatigue has a huge impact on cognitive performance and your ability to context switch. So this goes back to something that I think we touched on in the last episode, which was that the root cause of a lot of our problems is actually employee engagement. And by doubling down on figuring out what employee engagement really is all about, like what are the key elements that are related to it. And Kyle Norton, a friend of the podcast, has a really good post on this week. What are the elements? And then trying to optimize those to drive up engagement can solve so many of our other problems that we're trying to solve by pulling people into offices and make our meetings seem more fun. But the problem is different. So that's something new that I learned, and I've changed my mind about the traditional view.
That's great.
Okay.
Now, AJ did his prediction, so AJ unfortunately doesn't get to talk for the rest.
No, did I just skip? I didn't even remember. I read the first two questions of Asad, and I was like, "That's enough. I'm going to go through those."
He missed the minute.
The third one was the prediction on 2024, which you naturally did anyway. So you're just very...
I think I just I can't even read my own handwriting, so I didn't even
Okay, cool. We've got a few minutes. So Sam, prediction.
Generally speaking, I feel similarly to AJ. I feel like 2024 is going to be a really good year. I think the three of us, to varying degrees, have grown a tremendous amount, and I don't think we're the only ones. And I think we've designed our businesses and figured out, or we are increasingly figuring out, how to run these businesses for a longer period of time and not try to, quote unquote, flip them. And I think the economy is going to get better. I think that some of the uncertainty around the global macro environment will ease, even if it means that, Ukraine effectively surrenders or, pulls back. At least the uncertainty is the thing that troubles markets more than the act of the war. So I think, and then I think the Fed's going to start lowering rates probably in the summertime as we head into the election. And I think the election is a boon for the economy. All that political spending and all of that spending across, it generates lots of money. And so I think it's going to be a good year. Obviously, the stock market's thinking that too, because the stock market has absolutely ripped over the last couple of months. And even in the last 30 days, it's up 10%. So I think the markets are indicating that 2024 is going to be a really strong year. And there's still going to be ups and downs, but I feel good about it. In terms of, what are my resolutions? Not one of the questions, but
well, why not? Let's do some extra.
I'm skipping questions. Sam's making up his own questions. Fuck your docket, Austin.
Here's what I'm going to get better at next year. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. I had breakfast with Bobby Edmundowitz, who is a CRO, our Denver chapter co-head, where he was here in the city looking at possible opportunities. And he's very close with Insight. Anyway, he talked about operating cadences. And I realized that I've lost a lot of discipline about the operating cadence of how I run Pavilion and how we as an executive and senior team run Pavilion. And I am really excited to become better at that, to define the calendar. Kyle Coleman and Clary have this 13-week revenue map or revenue run or whatever, which is like, here's the cadence for your quarter. And we are going to get much, much better at clear operating cadence for the organization that will drive clarity, accountability, and alignment. That's something I'm determined to get better at.
I love that. I feel like a business should feel like it has a beat to it, right? Like there's a rhythm to it. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like I tried doing it. Like I've tried solving for it. I just haven't solved it completely. But I think it's so important. It should feel like that, like there's a rhythm. Okay, I'll do a quick prediction. I think AI companies that are pure play PLG companies will struggle in 2024. Gartner has this data out there that says that 75% of B2B buyers prefer to buy online without interacting with a salesperson. And with the growing number of millennials and Gen Zs in the decision maker seat, there'll be a shift to frictionless self-service buying. And we've seen that there's a lot of advocacy around PLG being more efficient, which is a fallacy, or at least I think it's a fallacy. We've shared some data around that in previous episodes. And whenever the market's tricky, you again, because of that fallacy, see this uptake in conversations around companies leaning into PLG because they want a more efficient go-to-market motion. I think a lot of what people are missing right now is that there's a platform shift. And whenever there's a platform shift, you have to take that into account into the go-to-market motion that you pick. Right now, we're very early in the cycle. At this point, there's a lot of curiosity out there, but you have to now try and turn that curiosity into revenue. You have to take that one early adopter person in that organization, help them understand the true value and impact of what you're selling, and help them then get everyone else that's not an early adopter but is part of the buying committee to lean in at a time where it's early in the cycle to lean in. And that's the job of a salesperson. Somebody has to hold that person's hand and take them through this process. So I think if other than companies that sell very basic shit like Calendly, that sure, PLG is great for that, I think anyone that's selling something truly complex in the AI space that's picking PLG as the motion is going to be eating shit in 2024. That's my prediction.
We're just all about ripping to shreds shitty companies, and I'm just kidding. You're like,
let's go.
Simple shit like Calendly, like, oh yeah, $1 million plus.
It's a simple product. It's the perfect, like, it's a beautiful product. There's beauty and simplicity, but
it's truly beautiful. I'm not even kidding. Like it
is like, but it's simple.
Yeah, it is simple.
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to building my community over here. So.
Shout outs and wins of the week, because we also have to record Top Line Hotline.
We do.
All right, AJ.
But Top Line Hotline's on Thursdays. Why would we record it?
We definitely don't do that.
My shout out goes to Pavilion member Tyson Goltz. Tyson and I chatted. He's a avid Top Line listener. He loves listening to it. He said he's running a half marathon, so every time he goes for a run, that's when he listens to us. So the RICP apparently is struggling half marathon runners. So we should market to those people on LinkedIn. But Tyson, thanks so much. He gives great feedback, and he is the CRO of a company, one of our customers, Fleetio, that's doing really well. So
great company.
I'll roll. I've heard from a couple of our listeners that they like when we share portions that we're having to sleep to try and sleep better, or books that we're reading that have been fun to read. So I'll share a book that I've been reading. It's called Black Edge. And it's basically about the hedge fund industry, but quite specifically about Steve Cohen and SAC Capital. And it's just one of the most exciting books I've read in a very long time. Like the fund is similar to this, which is the last recommendation I gave. It's an expose that's written in a very like thriller type of way. So it keeps you quite bought in, and it's a page turner, but it also kind of teaches you a little bit about the economy and about people and about how their behaviors are, what drives their behaviors, and also how much sketchiness there is in the world out there. And I think it is a great book to read for anyone that's looking for a fun book to read.
And fun fact about Black Edge, GLG, my former employer, heavily featured in that book. And anyway, and I was there. I was working at GLG during the time that Black Edge takes place, which is pretty neat.
That's wild.
Yeah, were you saying you're in the book?
I want to say that. I want to imply it without saying it. I'm not in the book, but I want to like make it like they're like, oh, maybe I'll go.
I was there. I was around.
I'm going to give a shout out to Pablo Dominguez and Matt May, who did an incredible CEO Pavilion briefing on lean scale-up methodology and strategic planning yesterday. And that coupled with my breakfast with Bobby Edmundowitz really changed my perspective. It just helped. It was the right stimulant at the right time for me to focus on, let's get better at planning. Let's get better at defining strategy more clearly. And it found its way directly. Literally, they gave that talk and it found its way directly into the presentation I'm giving on Monday in Nashville for our annual company offsite.
Oh, that's awesome. Did he play a
Go
Formula?
back to Nashville as well. Insight Partners had their talent team offsite in Nashville as well. Everybody loves Nashville.
Of course he knows that.
Sam loved Nashville. The Omni held us over a barrel and said, "This is the minimum payment. You better come back."
Like, I'm coming back.
Did Pablo play his Formula One video with like the pit stop?
Yeah, he did. He did indeed. It was just, it's useful because they have those 5 questions, and I don't have them in front of me, but it's a useful, quick, and understandable framework for what is strategy. And I really enjoyed it, and it helps me tell the story of Pavilion in a better, clearer way. And this has been another episode of Top Line. Thanks everybody for listening. Give us 5 stars. Reach out to us if you have feedback or comments. I haven't heard from anybody about the $10,000 I offered last week, but I am still offering $10,000 to anybody that tells 25 friends with proof of that friends, and I will wire it to you in the same day. Just send me screenshots of your text messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Oh shit, no word from our sponsors.
We're going to have to just insert it at some other point.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you. I think we're taking next week off, so this is going to be the last time you hear from us, maybe for 2 weeks. Maybe the first week of January.
Oh man, the recharge. What are all our listeners going to do without us for 2 weeks?
Maybe we'll do one Christmas episode, and then we'll take the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Oh, actually, no, we're recording next week, guys.
All right, so we'll record next week.
We've only taken 27th off. Relax.
You're going to hear from us for 1 more week.
Stay tuned to see Sam's dog licking his face.
And then stay tuned for us. It's also licking his face.
We got to go now, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Top Line. To learn more about the trends, news, and developments impacting the world of B2B SaaS, head to joinpavilion.com, where more than 10,000 of the world's top go-to market leaders go to achieve and unlock their full professional potential.